Bread and circus is a tool used by elites to maintain power by ensuring that the common people are too distracted and comfortable to challenge the status quo. It remains a tactic that is used today and manifests as governments using entertainment to distract people from real issues. Welfare is also used to manipulate the public. Yes, some people have a genuine need for food assistance, but many people are just gaming the system. During
Yeah, I don't know. What do you guys think? Are you gaming the system? I'm not.
the Roman era, bread and circus was manifest as the Roman government providing free or heavily subsidized grain, bread, and beverage to the lower classes, ensuring they had food and drink, and reducing the likelihood of unrest and riots. Public spectacles such as gladiator
Now I got to say that looks pretty badass. Look at them dudes on their chariots, and look at all the people up here in the stands, just packed full, like everybody and their brother. Everybody from as far as the eye can see came to this stadium for their free bread and circus. Gotta love it.
fights, chariot races in the Circus Maximus, and other grand entertainment events that were held to captivate and distract the people. Did it work? Yes, for a while. The Roman leadership successfully used
Back in the day, the war was brutal. I mean, today, like you get shot in the head and it's lights out, and you didn't even see it coming. Back then, I mean, look at this with these guys with their shields and their spears and swords and all that kind of stuff. I mean, that just looks like it would hurt.
bread and circus to maintain control, preventing revolts and keeping the lower classes loyal. As long as the empire had the wealth and resources to provide free grain and grand entertainment, it functioned as a stabilizing force. Despite its initial success, bread and circus was not a sustainable long-term strategy. Rome fell for many reasons, but bread and circus contributed to its downfall in several ways. The cost of providing free grain and expensive games became a massive financial burden on the empire. Rome relied on conquest to fund these programs, but as expansion slowed, so did the flow of resources. Citizens became more focused on entertainment and handouts than on the political and military health of the
I don't know about you guys, but that looks like one hell of a party to me. What do y'all think?
empire. This apathy weakened Rome's ability to respond to internal and external threats. Some historians argue that the emphasis on spectacle over substance led to a decline in discipline,
Okay, now that just looks like a total rock party. I mean, just like straight debauchery.
work ethic, and civic responsibility. Here is a short 3-minute video explaining the concept of bread and circus.
Bread and circuses. What does this actually mean? I've seen this quote being used in a variety of contexts. Some people think of it as a positive slogan for the beauty of circus and the simple life, but its true meaning is actually a little more sinister. The quote comes from a Roman poet named Decimus Junius Juvenalius, or in English, Juvenal. Juvenal was born around 55
Juvenile. Juvenile. What a name.
CE. At this time, Rome was reigned by the
Now, that guy looks like he's well fed. And he also looks like he's just like sad, mad, pissed, angry, like spoiled, rotten. Yeah.
Emperor Nero and the Roman Empire was prospering. Born into a middle-class family, Juvenal found himself joining the army. However, after failing to get a promotion to officer, Juvenal became cynical. He started to complain and write
So, in other words, it's not what you know, it's who you know, apparently. Same is true today.
about the court's bias in who gets promoted. This ultimately led to his banishment from Rome. He was driven away to Egypt, possibly.
I don't know. What do you guys think? What would have been nicer back in the day, Rome or Egypt? I mean, I don't know. I wasn't there, or at least if I was there, I don't remember my previous life of being there. Maybe I was there. Maybe you were there with me. Who knows? But do you think it would be more interesting to have been in Rome back in those days or in Egypt? I'm going with Egypt.
where he lived for many years. In 96 CE, the emperor who had been responsible for his banishment died, so Juvenal returned to Rome and began publishing his most famous work, Satires. The Satires were a collection of 16 satirical poems divided into 5 books that were issued roughly around 100 to 130 CE. They could be seen as a brutal critique of pagan Rome, corruption, social deviancy, and the general brutalistic nature of mankind.
You know, corruption, social deviancy, and the brutal nature of mankind. Does that not ring a bell?
They are the source of many well-known maxims: a sound mind in a sound body, who will guard the guards themselves, and of course, bread and circuses. The latter comes from satire X. Wrong desire is the source of suffering. So what does he really mean by this quote? The full poem talks about how easy it is to fall from power, referring to Sejanus, an extremely high-ranking individual, commander of the Praetorian Guard, advisor of the emperor, and at some point, practically emperor himself. However, before long, he was ultimately and suddenly executed for treason. He blames the mob of following Fortuna, the goddess of fortune and the personification of good luck. The full quote reads, "Long ago, the people cast off its worries. When we stopped selling our votes, a body that used to confer commands, legions, rods, and everything else has now narrowed its scope and is eager and anxious for 2 things only."
You know, I don't know about you guys, but reading this old literature like this and the way things were worded, it's a little hard to follow. Honestly, at least it is for me.
Bread and circuses. Democracy was very different at this time to what it is today. Around 100 years prior, Emperor Augustus claimed voting was wrecked by the Senate and solved the problem by abolishing voting altogether. The annona, or grain dole, had been an object of political contention for many years. Essentially, as a way to win votes, poor citizens were given free grain, which eventually turned into free bread. The circus at this time referred to the extremely costly spectacles, such as chariot races, gladiator fights, wild animal hunts, and the like. These events were the most likely places for a Roman to come into contact with the emperor, and became extremely important for morale, winning votes, and strengthening political grip. This is quite a poignant thing to think about and reflect upon as to how it applies
Oh, year 2023, huh? I could have swore it was 2025.
in today's society. For example, over the period of the lockdown, there was quite a controversial decision at the time to keep football games going, despite much of the other entertainment and public services being restricted.
Now, why do you suppose they would want to keep football going? Is that just to continue with the bread and circus? Well, obviously it is, because, you know, you got people, Boris Johnson here telling people, everybody's got to stay locked up in your flat or your house or your apartment or condo or whatever you want to call it. Of course, he was out and about doing his thing and partying and out in public, so that didn't apply to him because he's an elitist. But the rest of us, we have to stay home, and to prevent people from flipping out while they were being told they couldn't leave their houses. Hey, I know what to do. Let's continue the football games.
Here are examples of bread and circus in modern terms. Number 1, pointless television shows.
So let me stop right here for a second. I'm not picking on Ellen, but this just really is a great example of just absolutely pointless TV and the whole bread and circus distraction thing.
Some may find them entertaining. Do these type of shows expand your mind?
Again, I'm not picking on Kelly Clarkson show or Kelly Clarkson personally, but and I've never even watched the show. All I've seen is a couple of the clips, the advertisements for the show, and I'm like, no, hell no, I'm out.
Or add anything to social cohesion. Clearly, they do not.
Oh, who remembers Jerry Springer? Now, if that is just not some bread and circus distraction, mindless, pointless TV, I don't know what is.
Expand your mind. In fact, they do just the opposite. Here is a great example.
Taylor Swift. Everybody loves Taylor Swift, especially them Swifties. And I am not picking on Taylor or the Swifties. And there's 100 examples of different bands and artists and in every genre from, hip hop and rap to country to bebop to hard rock. And these people are all put up on a pedestal. And it's all part of that bread and circus thing, in my opinion. But at any rate,
Example of doing just the opposite. 99% of television programming these days is intellectually challenging. A recent example of modern day gladiator fights.
I'm probably the only guy on the planet who literally did not know who was playing in the Super Bowl, nor did I care who was playing. Every year I have the same team selected for the Super Bowl, and that's the Paducah Pawtuckets. Somehow or another, the Paducah Pawtuckets never seem to make it to the Super Bowl, but oh well, okay.
And look who is in attendance that is not a coincidence. We cannot forget the eye candy, very important. Other examples of modern bread and
That's a pretty damn rough looking building right there, folks. I'm quite sure that I believe that's in New Orleans in one of the neighborhoods, but wow, okay.
circus include free food. And if your EBT is empty, do not worry, there is always the food bank. Free medical care for the poor. I am not saying it is a bad thing. What I am saying is there are different levels of medical care. And if you're getting free medical care, good luck. Why that? Last but not least, here is enough free money for you to barely scrape by. Today's bread and circuses come in the form of mass entertainment, social media, and government handouts, distracting from real issues like economic instability, political corruption, and societal decline. To opt out, focus on financial independence, critical thinking, self-education, and active civic engagement rather than passive consumption of distractions.
In other words, you need to rein in your consumerism a little bit if you're one of those people that everything's about the next concert, the next meal, the next destination, the next vacation, the next trip, the next purse, the next pair of shoes, the next ring, the next Super Bowl, blah 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 blah. If you're that person, maybe stop and reflect for a minute and maybe try to understand that life is not about what you can consume and what you can collect and what you drive and where you live and how you dress and all that, because life is very fleeting, as we all know. Here today, gone tomorrow. And so the bigger question is, what is the tomorrow? What does that look like? If all you're consumed by and focusing on is what's parked in your driveway and how many square feet your home is and what you wear and where you're going to vacation and where you're going to eat out this weekend, you're totally, completely missing the point.
If you enjoyed this content, please consider subscribing. Thanks for watching.
Peace. See you next time.